G'day punters and welcome to Tab's Inside 50. Nick Quinn and Shane Crawford as per usual, and this week our very special guest, a man that made the number 46 very special for the red, white and blue. A warm welcome to Lin Jong.
Thank you for having me. I must admit, I did see a few of the lists of the past guests you've had, and you must be scraping the bottom of the barrel to have me on the show.
We've got the big guns out.
No, do you know what? We just sort of go with what we feel, and we feel that you are the right person for us this week. And let's talk about 46, okay? And I'm going to put Nick Quinn under the pump here. How many famous 46ers throughout all the different footy clubs over the last 100 years? Is there any that come to mind straight away?
What was Sean Red over in Adelaide? Was he 46?
No, he wasn't 46. Or I think of Johnny Platten 44. You know, there's plenty of famous 44s. But what about you, Lynn? Obviously a number that's close to your heart. Did you do any research to work out any sort of star players over a long period that had worn that number?
Not really. So it was my number at Oakley Chargers. And coincidentally, it's my date of birth, the 4th of the 6th, and so
there you go.
So Mum and Dad were obsessed with it, and I don't know if the Bulldogs knew it all, but yeah, they usually give the high numbers to the average draft picks, so I ended up with
Hey,
that.
hang on, my first number was 51. So you're saying I was average, are you?
Draft pick, I mean.
There you go. It's got a good little link. I know Nick's been on the phone very quickly trying to work out some of the star players from the past. So come on.
Well, Sean Wren was 52, so it was close but no cigar. But you did come off the rookie list. You got 46. You established yourself, though, and they did give you the choice to maybe upgrade your number or change it. But you said, no, I'm sticking with the 46.
Yeah, I think it was after maybe 2014. They asked if I wanted to change numbers. And Ryan Griffin just sort of just left the club then. So 16 was up for grabs. But no, I was pretty comfortable with the setting of where the locker was, especially amongst my fellow sort of high numbers. So no, I was happy to stick with that and you know, tried to make it a number of my own as much as I could.
Now, just on the back of that, the great Cyril Rioli, 33, what a superstar he was. When I'd taken off, they said, would you like number 9? He said, no, thanks. No, I'm staying with 33. No, don't want number 9. So I understand. You know, you stick with a number that feels right. So 46 for you. Felt right.
I feel like there's a tiny bit of pressure as well if you switch numbers and you end up being no good. But yeah, no, I was pretty happy I stuck with it.
Now we'll get to your time at the Dogs in a sec, but take us back to the early years. What do you remember about your junior footy?
So I started playing when I was 15, sort of for my junior club. My first experience playing footy was in primary school. We just did one of those round robin days where you play 4 other schools on the one day, and you know, sort of enjoyed it. And then through high school, my friends all played, and I felt like that was sort of a good connection to do that as well, as much as I enjoyed playing it. So it was pretty raw, obviously. You know, I didn't grow up having footy in my life, and you know, no brothers playing it. I got 4 sisters, so it sort of just came off my own bat, and my dad, you know, really wanted me to sort of play because he enjoys sports, but besides that, it just came about just because my friends all played.
So 4 sisters. So where do you fit in amongst 4 sisters?
The youngest. So
really?
Yeah.
They would look after you.
No, I got beat up a fair bit. So.
No, they'll be always looking out for you. And so what sport or what activities did you do as a kid? Obviously, AFL football wasn't there. So what was it?
Sort of played basketball when I was younger. Sport wasn't like a big thing in my family, and Mum was sort of, you know, being quite stereotypical, but big on the studying, and I think once she realised I was no good at that, she was happy for me to play sports, but she never wanted me to play footy at all. So it was basketball, and then when you get to that point where you play TAC Cup, you either pick footy or basketball, and then I just picked footy just because I enjoyed it more, not because I actually thought I could go anywhere with it.
And did you say you didn't start really playing until you were 15? Was that right?
Yep, 15. So kicking was a big thing for me that I couldn't quite get the knack of. But, but I think I can be cut some slack considering all things considered.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, starting at 15, there's quite an incredible journey, really, when you think about it. If you're taking up football seriously around that age, or you're starting to mix and mingle a bit. Wow, where you got a lot of the guys you're going up against, they've been probably going for 10 years, some even more, probably practicing in the backyard a lot. So it's quite incredible that you actually got to the Bulldogs and got a chance to have a crack at the big league.
Yeah, it was sort of weird when I got drafted. I felt like there were a lot better players than me, but I sort of just it must have been sort of the scope for improvement for me, and so it probably took me another 3 or 4 years in the system to actually feel confident in myself, and it felt like I knew how to play footy, as opposed to when I was 18, and I thought there was a lot of other better players than me that could have been drafted, but yeah, sort of it's just it's funny how that all turned out.
Now you never went to draft camp, did you? So
no,
that wasn't something you didn't do, but you did a bit of testing with a rookie sort of draft where everyone was allowed to go on test. And I know this because Ben Dixon was involved, and he said that you just blew everyone away with a few things from a testing point of view, but your jump, your leap, as good as Nick Natanui's. So that's how high this man can jump. And he said, Lin Jong, Bulldogs never played him in the right position. He should have been either on the wing or used as a ruckman. So how tall are you?
I'm 189. So
189, but if you got the leap that he has, Quinny, very much like yourself, huge springs in those legs. So obviously basketball had a great grounding for you, but were you able to slam dunk the ball and stuff like that coming through?
Yeah, I used to be able to. And yeah, back in those testing things, that's sort of I guess what made me stand out. Besides everyone else, obviously I didn't get invited to any of those things, but I like to think sort of those stats sort of they can help out in terms of figuring out someone's potential, I suppose.
So what about what Dicko said? He said, I don't think the Bulldogs played him in the right spots.
I actually did play ruck a few times.
Oh, did you? Oh, there you go. Maybe those games.
Only because I think we ran out of options, but I think I lost my leap a fair bit after a few injuries. But no, those are very nice things of him to say. It might be a bit of mayo on it comparing me to Nick Nat, but
no. Well, he that's what he said. He said, no, I'm telling you, his leap was as big as Nick Natanui's, and they should have used him in the ruck more, especially centre bounces.
I'll take it, though. I will take it.
Yeah, well, there you go. Something a bit different. You don't always have to be tall to be the ruckman, Quinny.
He didn't.
We saw that with Sean Grigg, but he couldn't jump.
The memo. There's no room for modesty in this room. When you're with me and Croft, you don't talk the stories down and you don't self-deprecate. It's not how we roll in here. Now, walk us through your family background as well, because your dad sounded like he came from a very rough situation. Your family relocated to Australia in 1985 before you joined us on the planet. What can you remember from those early days? And they talk much about what happened, especially with your dad who had to flee a civil war?
Sort of not till we were a bit older. They started to talk about it more, and obviously as kids we grew a bit more curious, and got a better appreciation of sort of the things they did just to make it to Australia. You mentioned Dad was 18 when he left East Timor he left to study, and then there was a civil war months after that, so he couldn't come home, and so that was pretty traumatic thing for him, and eventually he sort of was travelling, and Mum and Dad met in Taiwan, where Mum's from, where they had my older sister, and somewhere along the lines they just wanted a better life, and came to Australia. Dad was a taxi driver. Not sure. Mum was a chef back in Taiwan, but I don't know how true that is after eating some of her meals, but it's like now that I'm actually older, it's pretty crazy to think all that happened. Like, for me to play AFL, that was pretty lucky, and all those things can only happen because they made those decisions.
So how does your dad go being a taxi driver? When back then, obviously being in Melbourne, you need a Melway, so you got to turn the pages. It's hard enough to work out where you're going as it is. So how did he go trying to work out a big city like Melbourne?
I reckon he got into a few punch-ons with the with the passengers, but it's even things like that, like to even think you could be a taxi driver, but it's almost like those, his options were pretty limited, and yeah, he just he's someone I really admire to even think about doing that to a country you've never been to a language you don't speak.
Yeah.
It's something that I'm just really grateful for now that I can understand it more.
Long hours as well, and did you see him much at night, or was he out working frequently?
I don't really recall seeing him too much. So he was, working a fair bit. I can't imagine sort of he had to do a few cab rides to make ends meet. Sort of now he's got obviously a new job, and he was around a bit more after finishing up those hours.
And as you progress with your footy, how hard was it for your family to understand and comprehend just how good you were and what a magnificent achievement it was when you started to enter the AFL ranks?
Well, it's like I mentioned earlier, Mum never watched me play junior footy. I think the first sort of experience was we made the TAC Cup Grand Final, so had to make a Grand Final for her to come watch. And I remember when I got drafted, I was in my room, I was on my laptop. It's not like I was with the family and you see on the draft nights, it wasn't like that. And my name came up and there was a typo, so I wasn't 100% sure it was me either.
What do you mean there was a typo?
It said Lin Jong, and in my head I was like, maybe there is another Lin Jong out there. but they got that wrong, and so after I figured out that has to be me, obviously, went out, Mum was in the kitchen, and I said, "Oh, Mum, I've just been drafted to the Bulldogs." She's like, "Oh, good for you." Didn't really quite understand what being drafted to the AFL was, but now she's just about the number one biggest fan for the Western Bulldogs, and again, that's a pretty special thing considering she didn't enjoy or know what footy was at all for years and years.
It must be refreshing in one way though, where I dare say you would have witnessed a lot of really pushy parents and overbearing parents with their children as they went through the ranks. Safe to say you didn't have to worry about that.
No. So my sisters copped the brunt of that, and it was about VC scores and ATAR scores. And so as the kids went through, the ATAR score got lower and lower. So by the time I came, I think they gave up on that. But I was pretty lucky I played footy because I wasn't that great at my studies.
And what about your dad? What was when you were drafted? Did he show much emotion? He obviously understood the game of AFL a bit more than your mum. So, was there anything there, or he's just playing a straight bat?
No, I think so. He was at work, so I had to call him. But he was a pretty reserved sort of person. But even though he never said it, I'm pretty certain it meant the absolute world to him. He was the one who always drove me to footy training and things like that. Obviously not knowing if I was going to get drafted, just doing it because I loved playing footy. So, and now that I am finished up, I'm getting sort of a better understanding of how much it meant to them, being able to play footy, especially for the family, being able to come together on a weekend. We never had anything like that. It's not like we went to church on Sundays together. So it's something I'm really appreciative that I played and was able to sort of give that for them.
So what about your first game? You get given a game, obviously you get yourself into the system, you get yourself your first game, so you're thinking, how good is this? So take us through telling your parents and then having them come and watch you in your first game. So tell us about that experience.
Yep, so absolutely gifted my first game. I reckon in my first year I played half of my games in the VFL reserves, not in the VFL ones, and when I did play in the ones, I reckon I played maybe 2 good games through the year. So it shocked me because I wasn't expecting to play. We were, really running out of players at that point. So I told Mum, Dad, like I said before, doesn't give much, but Mum was pretty excited, which was nice. As I said, she didn't watch me play footy, so that was sort of a good thing, and told all my mates, and ordering a lot of tickets at the MCG, and I think Mum and Dad actually missed my first game because they were overseas.
No,
so they had a trip planned, so they went to New Zealand. They watched my second and third game and so on, but I was lucky enough to have my sisters and friends there, so pretty whirlwind experience.
Oh, that would have been tough for them, knowing that you're playing and they weren't around. But that was a great thing. Like, even with my mother, my mum didn't watch me play footy a lot because she was always working, and single parent. So the one thing I found is being able to play and play well, it just made her so proud and happy. So I'm like, I can actually control how my mum's feeling.
Yeah.
So it was quite powerful and very motivating, and I'm sure it would have been very motivating from your point of view because, as you said, it brought your family together.
Yeah, absolutely. And, especially for the playing well part, that was a lot harder on my end than yours, I'm sure. But she was, and she started going to games when I wasn't playing. So, I mean, it's just crazy to think how much she loves it now. And now that I've stopped playing, she'll continue to be a Bulldogs member and continue to go to games. And, to sort of think that I had that influence on her is something really special.
Well, you made your debut round 20 against Richmond. Going back earlier on in the year, what can you remember about going to the footy club for the first time and some of the names that stood out?
Obviously nervous wreck as any player would be, and I think for me it was I was quite self-conscious just knowing, I'm from an Asian background and it was a very unique thing, and it still sort of is, and so sort of having that own sort of self-doubt in my head and just knowing I'm different to everyone. So there was sort of that sort of added layer of feeling a bit different. But, once I got in there, it was just like sort of any other normal club. And I remember first player I met was Daniel Cross, who I used to love watching, and Matthew Boyd. He was, pretty intimidating character. And then, other guys like Bob Murphy, Daniel Jones, Syracuse, and sort of just walking in there and just thinking how weird it is that I started playing footy 3 years ago and now I'm, in the same locker rooms as these sort of guys. And, and sort of now that I reflect it, it is strange that I'm saying, it was 3 years and then playing AFL footy. So, it feels like a long time ago, but it was a pretty scary year in the first year.
What do they do to help people fit in? Do you go to the pub and have a beer initially to meet people, or is it basically straight into business or lots of meetings and shaking hands? Was there something that helped you really feel part of the furniture around the place?
They did assign you a sort of mentor, which I had Matty Boyd, and he was the captain, so he had a lot of other things to do at that time. But I feel like when I started, I feel like it's different now, but it was sort of find your own feet on your own a bit. It was, first training session, it's just do everything until you can't do it anymore. Whereas I think these days it's do half a session and then you keep building up from there. And so it was pretty intimidating walking into and trying to, just learn on the spot and you get thrown into the deep end a little bit, like even just like, finishing training, and then you got to go do a swim. I was like, I don't even know how to swim and things like that. And so it was a bit like that. You just had to learn as you go. Whereas I think it's better now, but now it's sort of like you're guided along the way. So it took me a little while to find my feet.
Do you know how to swim now?
I do. After many injuries and rehab sessions, I've finally learned to be an average swimmer, I'd say.
So take us through that. So you finish training, then you go into a swim session, and you're not a swimmer. So how are you actually feeling? You're thinking, hang on, I want to show that I'm here and I'm committed, but I don't even know if I can float. So take us through all that.
Yeah, so I've never done swimming in my life, and they're like, the fitness guy we had was a triathlete sort of specialist, so we had to swim like a K, I think, and and this is how naive I was. There's 25-metre lap pools. Yep. I thought there were 50.
Yep.
So I thought I was absolutely killing it, and I've jumped out of the pool, and everyone's still
you jumped
going.
out first.
Yeah. So I've done 300 metres or so, thinking it's almost
with no
a K.
technique.
Yeah.
You would have been grabbing onto the rope
in the water and getting to the end and just resting for a minute and then going and just losing count eventually because I'm so fatigued. And so I started to learn a trick where you just wait till everyone finishes, and then when everyone's in the change rooms, you jump out and then go to the showers after that. So that was my sort of way of learning how to swim.
We had Johnny Platten, the great Johnny Platten. He couldn't swim either, so he used to have a big floaty around the middle, and that's he looked like a drowned rat because he had the permed long hair, and he just used to float up and back while everyone else was doing the swimming. So you weren't the first that couldn't get in.
I wish I had the floaties, but yeah, back then Matt Boyd or someone would have whacked you over the head for having those. So.
Having the assistants. Now, people probably look back at your time at the Dogs and thought, oh, they were fantastic the whole time. What a wonderful time to be at the club. It wasn't like that initially, though. The club did have a pretty tough transitional period before Luke Beveridge came in and lost more than you won.
The first 3 or 4 years was pretty rough, and sort of, first 1 or 2 years you're just looking after yourself, and you don't really care about how much the team is going because you just want to get a game and things like that. But yeah, obviously losing a lot of games and walking into those Monday reviews was pretty scary. Having Brendan McCartney, a bit of an old school coach, and someone who I felt was really scary. You walk past him in the hallways and you weren't sure whether to say hello or not, or you would say hello and he just wouldn't talk to you. And so those were pretty dark times, and they would have been darker for the boys who are older and would have been in their prime, or they played a lot of prelims in a row, and then all of a sudden they're down near the bottom. And then at the end of 2014, we lost our captain and our coach, and things looked like they were just turn into absolute crap, and so it was a pretty weird turnaround. I don't think anyone expected that, but I think I got a better appreciation of the better years, just because we had been through those tougher ones.
Luke Beveridge comes in. What do you remember his first impression at the club?
Completely different to Brendan McCartney. I thought he was great. He just was so down to earth, and like I mentioned before, just someone you could talk to, and I think in coaches it's a pretty big thing to feel comfortable around a coach, and I think I can speak on behalf of all the players that we felt that way. And so he just sort of brought on this sort of mantra that he just really believed in us, and it was a lot about if you make a mistake, don't worry about it, and he just instilled this crazy belief in us that we never had, and it's taken us to the finals after that sort of first year he was there, and then obviously the premiership. So it's pretty underrated. How much that can affect a club when a coach really believes in you.
Yeah, like he did a great grounding. Obviously, had other jobs along the way. He worked for the tax department. He loves skateboarding. I've seen him many a time cruising around on his skateboard. I don't know if you've ever seen him do that.
Yeah, he's a bit of a quirky character at times too.
Yeah, he loves his surfing, but he loves his footy, and I love that uniqueness. Even now, he's got the handlebar moustache, which some people are saying, oh, you can't take him serious and get a message from him, but I think some people have lost the absolute plot. But, coaches like that who are just prepared to do things differently and do it their way, they're the ones that often have success and get the team going.
Yeah, and just his off-field approach as well. Like you said, he was a bit different here and there, but I think first and foremost he was, a sort of a friend. I use the word friend very loosely because it's hard to be a friend as a coach, but that's what he was first, and then a coach second. So the things that if you ever had feedback for you, or the things that he said, you take on board a lot more because you felt like you meant something to him as a person.
And there's a way to say it too, isn't it? Like you can have a coach who can just look you in the eye and barrel you, and then you can have a coach like Luke who can just go, hey, Ling, mate, this is what I need you to do, or next time. And straight away the messages come through. He speaks to you in a manner that's respectful and conversational, and it's amazing how that flows on.
Yeah, and he sort of, he can give you a whack over the ears and then sort of put his arm around your shoulder, whereas I think when we had Brendan McCartney, it was always just, straight down the barrel, just this is how it is, there's no other way except this way, and if you've done something wrong, like this is your fault, this goal's, this and that, and so it was just a really different approach to what I was used to anyway, and so like I said, you just weren't afraid to make mistakes, and and it's just crazy how much they can do for players.
Footy's full of mistakes. You know, the very best players are making mistakes all the time. It's just what they do next. Do they make 2 in a row? You know, how they follow up. What about some of the players, the unique players, you know, on a footy list? As you said, you went through a few before, but everyone comes from all walks of life. And that's the great thing about a footy club. It really connects everyone and makes you understand a lot about cultures and different people. Were you there when Brian Lake did you get to play with him for a year?
Yeah, I had him for a couple of years, I think.
Yeah. So he was very unique.
Yeah.
Even when he went to Hawthorn, you know, they often said that Brian's Brian and does things his own way. So who are some of the players that, you know, you just thought, they obviously, I'm trying to think of the captain who's gone over to Fremantle.
Bob?
Robbie, Bobby Murphy. Can't believe I forgot him. Sorry, Bob. If he's tuning in, he'd be listening because he loves all this. But like he's different as well, you know. But we love that about all the footballers. We love that personality coming through and being a bit different.
Yeah, and you know, I keep saying when I was younger, I'm not trying to sound like an old person, but when I first went in, it was sort of like you just had to conform to this way of, you know, being a man and doing this and you know, I think a great example would have been Matthew Boyd. He was this, you know, grumpy old man and so intimidating. You know, I used to be so scared of him. And then as things progressed and you know, the younger players came along, and all of a sudden it's, you know, it's okay to be yourself. You know, you don't have to act a certain way or do things just because this person does it. And that's something, you know, Bevo instilled upon us. It's okay to be yourself. And sort of once it happened, you know, Boydie, all of a sudden, he's actually a really funny guy once you get to know him, and all these people are flourishing because, you know, they're not trying to act like someone they're not. And, you know, all these things that you know, off field that make a huge impact. It's not really that surprising that we started to gel more a bit together, and as we became better mates, you know, it was better on-field results.
With Bevo, it sounds like two of his great strengths through his passion and his loyalty, but maybe those two things can be his weaknesses at times as well, which you might have seen recently in some media conferences.
I love that. I loved it. I loved, you know, obviously Luke Beveridge, Tom Morris. I loved, you know, a journalist is doing his job, having a crack, and then he's trying to stand up to a football coach who's revved up to the max. I loved it. And it's funny because we often complain about football coaches getting in there and going, oh, yeah, we didn't play well. Yeah, we weren't hard enough for the footy. Okay, see you later. I'm like, boring as bat crap, you know, boring as bat shit. So I loved it. I loved everyone challenging each other. Yeah, he overstepped the mark, but he apologised, and we all move on. But it gave us, that was the start to the year. That's the start to the year, and you wouldn't believe it. It's probably the only time they don't go to a live press conference because they were talking about other things and all sorts of things, and then it just blows up like that. So anyway, I loved it. What did you think of it?
Yeah, it sort of overshadowed the game a bit. You forget that we lost. I thought I was on both sides as well. I could see it from both sides. You know, obviously, if someone sprayed me, I'm going to stand up for myself,
yes. But not many would in that situation. So I give a bit of credit to Tom to going, I'm doing my job, which he was.
Yeah, and I think Bevo hasn't. You know, I don't think he's the most fondest of media, but he felt like he sort of triggered him a little bit there, and I don't know. It was cool to see, you know, a bit of personality and a bit of anger. Obviously, you know, he was emotional, but we're humans, and that's what we do. And he apologised after. You know, I think it's a different story if he didn't. I'm sort of knowing him, I probably didn't want to. but at the end of the day, that's it. You say these things, and it can be at the heat of the moment. But if you apologise, and no harm done. But obviously, no harm done. But there is a bit now. But yeah, I think it adds a bit more to the media side. You know, you see America and you know, people can just say what they want, and that's okay. Sometimes they get fined, but I reckon it adds another sort of layer to footy.
I think coaches should be challenged more in those press conferences because they make mistakes, you know, and you know, you don't want to admit it, but I think they should be challenged more in situations like that because we don't want the standard. Anyway, I loved it, and I wanted more. But I just got a feeling with Luke Beveridge, I reckon, because they were talking about maybe information being leaked, into the grand final last year, and then obviously, into the round one, players coming in and out and so forth. So Luke Beveridge spent a bit of time with Alistair Clarkson, and that is Alistair Clarkson's biggest hate. And you ever watch when he was coaching, there would always be a late change with Alistair Clarkson half an hour before the match. Always. He didn't even want the players to know, because of the trust thing. So I got a feeling that Luke Beveridge went, do you know what? Something's not right at the moment. It's maybe not the players, maybe it's some support staff, or maybe it's, I don't know, someone tied in with a football club, but it's getting out and I'm not happy with it. So I'm going to go at this journalist. I'm going to rip in, but I know my players and all my support staff are going to see this, and there won't be any more information coming out for the rest of the year. I've just got a feeling there was more to that message, Quinny, than we all sort of think and know.
Or as Lynn said, the fact that no one was talking about the fact they lost the game might have been a little diversion as well. Yes. But let's talk about 2016, because you personally clearly just shot to another level. You established yourself as one of the elite midfielders in that Bulldog team that would go on and win a premiership. What changed in 2016, and did your mindset change as well? Because you probably went out those first couple of years hoping to keep your spot in the team, maybe a little bit of self-doubt where you said you weren't good enough to be given a game in round 20 against Richmond. That certainly changed in 2016.
Yeah, I think so. I think after making the finals in 2015, and I think that was a bit of shock to all of us, this whole mantra is, why not us? We could, take it this far, and there's a lot of talking during that season from older players saying, who'd play in those previous prelims, saying this is actually something special, and we've got a really special group with us. And then as the year went on, I don't think you don't talk about finals that often early in the season, and then once it became more of a real thing, and all of a sudden, maybe we're in this premiership window. And we did finish, was it 7th or 8th? So we had to play West Coast in our first final where it was sort of backs against the walls, and we had nothing to lose sort of thing. And then, obviously won that. And from that was sort of like a big sort of spring into all this, we can honestly we can beat anyone on any given day. Beat West Coast over there in a final is something we hadn't done in forever. So, and I guess on a personal level, obviously the year didn't end well for me, having been injured in the first final. But just found this new belief in myself, and all of a sudden, I'm starting in the midfield alongside some Bulldog greats, and still pinching myself, but then still sort of saying, you know what, I think I do deserve to be here because, I've put in a lot of hard work, and it's okay to sort of back yourself here and there.
You'd learn how to swim. You've got all of that covered. You were ticking all the boxes. But even leading into that first final against West Coast, the Bulldogs were wounded. You guys were, I think you had 5 players that came in for the West Coast game, the first final. So you guys were wounded, and that was the first time they virtually said, okay, we're going to have a week off, which, looking back, if you didn't have that week off, you probably don't make a grand final. That's the way I look at it, and I'm friends with, good family friends with your doctor, Gary Zimmerman, and, even talking to him after you did go on to win the grand final, he's like, oh, the boys are unbelievable. I don't know how they held together, but they did, but thank goodness for that break leading up until your first final.
Yeah, it's sort of, I actually forgot about the week off, but the stars sort of like aligned there because we had Libba and Jacko McRae out, obviously extremely good players. And looking back, sort of there was a lot of things that really worked in our favour. And I'm pretty comfortable in saying we wouldn't have won without Libba or Jacko.
Yeah, yep.
Now, you personally, you had such a great season. Unfortunately, though, in that second quarter against West Coast, you break your collarbone. An injury that most people would be sidelined for 6 months for. I might never play again. You missed one game of football. Unfortunately, though, it was a pretty bad time to do the injury. What happened next, and how close did you get back to returning?
Yeah, so did my collarbone in the second quarter, as you said. On the red eye, back to Melbourne. Got back at about 5 a.m, I think, and straight into surgery that morning, I think. So pretty crazy sort of few hours there. But got the surgery. Obviously, when it happened, they're trying to say. I thought they were trying to just say, you'll be right for, the grand final or whatever game was coming up next. And I've broken the collarbone, so I'm sort of like, that's done for me. And I was quite emotional about that. And so all of a sudden, sort of had the surgery, and sort of a few days after the surgery, I was sort of lifting my arm, and I was like, this actually feels okay, but obviously there's still a plate in my arm.
They chucked the plate in.
Yeah. So I had the plate in, and so missed the Hawthorn final, and then we had GWS the week after that, where I was pretty touch and go. So if we lost that game, I wouldn't have played in the VFL Grand Final. And so I took a lot of painkillers and sort of just had to get them to reaffirm that I can't break it again. It'll hurt a lot, but it cannot break, like physically can't break.
Really? Was that the case?
Yeah, and so
I didn't realise you could whack a plate in and go, no, you won't break it again.
Yeah, I don't know if they just told me that.
Ignorance is bliss.
Well, after the VFL game, we had to scan it because I could not lift my arm, and it was bent pretty badly. So I'm like, maybe it didn't break, but it was it could bend, and so that was that two sort of whirlwind of 2 weeks after having broken my collarbone and then missing that game, and then coming back to play the VFL Grand Final and played okay, and unfortunately and in my heart I probably knew that I wouldn't be able to play because there was no one to drop or no one to come in for, and but yeah, it was it's a pretty cool thing to look back on.
Before we get to the VFL Grand Final, because there's another great story, and you say you played okay, you got the Norm Goss medal for best on ground. So again, no room for modesty in this podcast. But you had a fair crack at getting back into the team before that Giants game, one of the best prelims we've ever seen. Tell us about the fitness test with Joel Corey.
Yeah, so I said to him, they said, if you get through training, you should be able to play. And I was like, no, I need someone to just bash me, essentially. And Joel Corey being the brute that he is, I've never seen him feel much empathy for anyone, but even he felt a bit sorry. So I got him to come up to me and just, I had the ball and just absolutely just smacked me on my collarbone. And I was almost in tears after that, but it's something I had to do. I had to get him to tackle and just flat out just hit the collarbone just to know I was all safe and good to go, because I couldn't in sort of good conscience go into a finals half-hearted, knowing I'd be taking someone else's spot too. So that was pretty traumatizing.
So you didn't play in that Giants prelim. You go and play in the VFL Grand Final, but you had a little ace up your sleeve. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so going into the game, they spoke about it a day before, and they said, this is something we've done in the past. We strapped the other shoulder because generally the other team will go after it, and I was just like, whatever, like I don't care. I'm playing with the plate, like it's already hard enough. I don't need this. And so in my mindset, I was like, if I have this tape, it's sort of, there is something wrong with my shoulder, whereas I want to come into the game thinking there's nothing wrong with me. So I said, yep, cool, whatever, I don't really want to do it. So come into the game day and I said, no, I don't want to do it because, as I said, I just want to act like there's nothing wrong with me, even though there's a lot of padding there. And then they're like, okay, it's your call. Do the warm-up, come back in there. And then the head physio is like, no, we really, really think you should do it. And I said, okay, just do minimal taping on the left shoulder. Had my broken collarbone on my right. And then through the game, they smashed the shit out of me.
Who were you playing?
It's against Casey.
Okay.
So the Melbourne Football Club affiliate.
Yeah, earmarked it. Had you circled on the board?
Well, I think one of the boys was Caleb Daniel was friends with Alex Neil-Bullen, who said they made a point to go after me. And fair enough, I put my hand up and said I was healthy to play, but my good shoulder, so the one that was strapped, was so sore from getting hit so many times that it was genuinely worse than my broken collarbone. And so I was sort of like, in my head, I was like, well, now I've got two busted up shoulders, and when I could have just had one really bad one. So, but it saved me in the end. They didn't really catch on that wasn't the one. That wasn't the one to go after because and I kept turning into it. But yeah, it really did help me in the end.
And a terrific day personally. As we said, you got the Norm Goss Medal for Best of Field, a 2-time VFL Premiership player, and that must be a day you look back fondly with.
Yep, so absolutely dominated the grand final.
That's it, you're learning.
Close to 30 touches, I think it was. Obviously didn't have that high of expectations to play that well. But yeah, it sort of maybe helped me a little bit because I wasn't thinking so much as I was playing in a grand final. I said, geez, I'd love to get through this game unscathed. And yeah, happened to play pretty well and yeah, win the Norm Goss medal. And yeah, it's something I'm pretty, I've got fond memories about now.
But even the way you've done it, it just shows you, mentally, if you can get your head to that state where, okay, I've just got to get myself through. It's amazing what you can get out of your body, isn't it?
Yeah.
And your body just sort of adapts and rolls with you.
Yeah, and sort of on the flip side, I'm sort of like, I'll never put myself through that thing ever again. But it is something sort of I look back on and sort of having gone through a fair amount of injuries, it's something I can sort of just look back on and say, I actually went through that, so I can get through this. And that was a great mindset for a while. But after years and years of that, it sort of got to a point where it's sort of like, oh, I could get through that, but I don't want to anymore. So yep. It's something that did hold me in good standing. It's something a great example of how of how much I know I can push myself at least.
How hard was watching the AFL Grand Final between the Bulldogs and Sydney?
It was really sickening, if I'm going to be honest. Like, as much as I love my teammates, and it did take me a while to sort of to process, and it's just this really, and if I feel bad saying it because it does sound quite selfish, but it's just like a sort of human nature sort of thing, and just the way that I think that people are wired, that you're missing out on this massive thing, and I was, don't get me wrong, I was happy for my team and my teammates, but just from a really personal and selfish point of view, it's sort of like, geez, I sort of wish I was out there. I feel like I deserve to be out there. And it took me a fair while to sort of realise, I can just be happy for other people, you get a lot more happiness from yourself if you can sort of let those kind of things go and say, Jack McRae is one of my best mates and he's just won a premiership, and I feel like I can actually honestly just be happy for him. But it did take me a while to process when I was a bit younger. And
what a win. It was incredible. I love the fact Luke Beveridge, and I don't know, you might be able to tell us, he coached at Hawthorn there for a little bit and worked a bit with the forwards with Buddy Franklin. And Buddy Franklin just had no time or space. Every time he got near the footy, it was like he was in a box of Bulldogs players around him. Just didn't allow him to do his thing. And obviously he was the real key for the Swans if they were to win. So was there a bit of talk around all that? Obviously he's a star player. You want to stop the star players, but they do have a lot of other good players as well. But that's one thing from a coaching point of view. I just thought, gee, the Bulldogs had that planned perfectly.
Yeah, so even throughout the season, we always had plans for him. Obviously, being the player he is, there is that point where it's just like Buddy's Buddy, and he's going to do what he does. But a huge thing that we made a big deal was, and Bev always said, he's the best field kick in the AFL. And that's something that gets overlooked because of the amount of goals he kicked, but it was always, and I think when you float around the person with the ball, that's changed a bit, but it was never ever let him get a handball received with someone on the mark, so that he could actually kick it to someone inside 50 because he hits a target all the time, and so that was made a pretty big deal of, and we focused on that even throughout the season.
Now we look at your games and it sees 65 here, which is an indication that it's an amazing effort to play 65 games, but if not for rotten luck with injury, that number could be doubled or tripled. You had so many bad injuries. How hard was it first physically and then mentally, just dealing with the injury, the rehab, getting back in the team, and then starting the whole process over again?
It was really tough. Sort of, I was one of those players in the first sort of few years. I never had injury ever in my life, and then sort of when it rained, it poured, and it just kept happening over and over. And it was hard enough to sort of find consistency in a sport that I wasn't that familiar with. And so to finally sort of, make it back in, and then you have surgery, and then you got to build your way up again, and you lose confidence from injuries, and even just like, Shane mentioned, being able to jump, and I can't jump to save my life now because of all the injuries. And it was really sort of mentally draining, and as I mentioned earlier, I kept saying to myself, I've done this injury, I can do, did my ACL, I can come back from any injury, broken my leg, and so I can keep coming back. And then it just got to a point where it's just like, I don't know if I can anymore, and it really did get to a point towards the end. And even in the last game I played, I was always expecting to get injured. I was sort of like, things are going pretty well, but I'm going to get injured eventually, and that was sort of just that little voice in my head, and obviously that didn't help out. But yeah, and then in my last injury I did, I knew I was done. I was sort of like, I don't even want to do rehab anymore. I don't love footy enough to want to go through it. So it was a bit sad in the end, but I wouldn't really change it.
You just know, but it's quite a remarkable story, really. You start having a kick with your mates, 15 years of age. You're somehow good enough to get yourself onto a list. As you said, you felt different going into a football club. They embrace you. Your mother's converted. She still goes to the games. It is a remarkable story, for what you've been able to do. And not many people play AFL footy, let alone, over 60 games. And I did, because Ben Dixon back in the day said, keep an eye out for you. So I always kept an eye out for you because he had, great faith in where you're going and what you're trying to do. But the thing is, you played a bit too tough. Like, that's your problem. So you don't want to go in and bash your body every week, which is what you did. You love the physical side of things. So where did that come from?
As I said, I grew up with 4 sisters, so I reckon when they beat the
I'll
shit
tell
out
you
of
what,
me.
they must be tough. They must be bloody tough.
Yeah, but they did stop after I was about 16. No, I just always, I don't know, I always played that way, and I feel like I had this courage, and as I said, I never got injured when I was younger, so I kept going and going, and then...
I think it's because everyone probably got out of your way.
Yeah, a little bit of that.
Stay away from him, he charges through.
But then the injuries they did tinker with mine. Even when I did my knee, I was sort of like, I was always 50-50 sort of after those balls. So, I just always did that without thinking. And I remember Will Minson pulled me up one time, and he said, you got to, you're courageous, but you're stupid. And I'm sort of like, what the hell are you talking about? And so once he sort of, said that, I sort of started to tick a bit. It's all good and well to go back with the flight, but if you don't have to, you don't have to. Like, if the ball's not there to be spoiled, it's great intentions. So I did have to, as I said, learn along the way when I was sort of playing in my earlier years. But yeah, probably became more of an outside player in my last couple of years, I reckon.
Now, you had shocking luck with injury. You had a lot of luck off the field.
But Alligator Blood, 100 metres to go, races away, 3 lengths in front, Super Seth is flying, Alligator Blood stopping Super Seth from the clouds, it's close, Super Seth has put in a mighty lunge, Photo, Super Seth may have got Alligator Blood, it's a Photo groundswell for third, Photo 4, and Super Seth will get up in a barge.
The 2019 Caulfield Guineas won by Super Seth.
No.
How many horses have you owned, you reckon,
No
Shane Crawford?
way.
How many shares have you taken in horses?
You can get stuff in. That's unbelievable.
How many horses have you had shares in?
I've had a lot of horses.
I've had shares in 83 horses.
Have you?
83.
Why am I laughing? I'm laughing.
And you'd be about the same, wouldn't you?
Yes, probably. I don't know. But a lot.
A third of your partner knows of, yes. This bloke bowls up, first horse.
No.
Super Seth.
No way.
Wins the Caulfield Guineas in a photo finish. Walk us through that day.
Well, it's actually the 10th time I've heard that just today, so it's part of my morning ritual. I suppose this sort of stuff I can be a bit more cocky about. But no, I've never really been into horse racing that much. And
Oh, see, that hurts as well.
I'm sorry to say to anyone listening. But my good mate, Lockie Hunter, just came to me one day. Talk about luck. So him and Tory Dixon had Merchant Navy first up, and then they got into Super Seth. And I said, geez, if you ever get into another horse, can you just let me know? And he said, there's a % for this horse. They reckon it's pretty good. Friedman's thought it was going all right. So I was like, yeah, of course. I just want to be in it for the experience, to go to the races and have a horse and watch him. And all of a sudden we're watching him in a Group 1, and the way he won was unbelievable, and
like a rocket.
Yeah.
And so it went to stud, didn't it? Did that?
Yeah.
We'll get to that.
Oh,
Don't
we're
worry.
getting to that because
The
you're talking
paycheck's
about
still rolling.
you're talking about Merchant Navy. You're talking about Merchant Navy that went over season 1, and then it was sold for 30 or 40 mil. I'm like, hang on, you're rolling with the right people.
Yeah, I sort of thought. That being my first horse, I sort of like, especially with Lockie and Dicko having Merchant Navy, it's like, this must just happen all the time. Like, if this trainer says it's good, it must be good. Like, it must be so simple. And went to stud, and he didn't win a race after that, unfortunately. But yeah, I just thought it was that easy, and they. I was on a couple of interviews, and they're filming, Channel 7. They're like, how does it feel? And I was sort of like, this is so easy, like horse, owning a horse, probably coming off a bit arrogant, but just trying a bit of tongue in cheek, and yeah, it was a pretty crazy experience that day.
So they come to you and say, hey, by the way, not only have you won a big race, amazing. It's over $1 million, that race anyway, isn't it? But it's a stallion-making race. There's a stud that wants to buy this horse. So how did those conversations go? And how much did they offer to buy the horse for?
So we were lucky because
bloody lucky.
The boys had been through it previously, so they were talking as if It'd all been done before, pretty casually talking, throwing out these figures. I think Yulong was floating around there somewhere, but then I think it was Hokkaido Studs came, and they want to offer this much. I think it was about 15 mil or something like that. And we were just like, Jesus, what the hell's going on? Like, this is like some other mates were in it who didn't play footy, and they're sort of like, this is life changing. I'm like, mate, it's life changing for me. It's like, you play footy. I'm like, it doesn't matter, mate. This is crazy money for
but it's
anyone.
easy. I can do it every year. This is good.
Yeah. And so sort of once all that got figured out, and I still remember we the majority owner, I can't remember his name, big millionaire, I was sort of like, yep, come pick up your checks in the Rialto Tower level, whatever. And I'm dressed up in, Birks and shorts and a tee, and I'm going up to level something in this big boardroom, and they hand me this check, and I'm just like, this cannot be real. And
who wants to play footy? I'm going to just
was it Jonathan Munns? Was he the senior?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. Yes. And so I'm sort of like, geez, this is more than I've made in footy for the past few years, so it's pretty handy. But I have invested in a fair few horses after that. And
good, so you should.
You'll be happy to hear none of them have been any good.
But Super Seth, your first horse, just forget the money aspect of it.
You can't
Although he
forget
won
the
over
money.
1.6 million and then went to stud.
For 15
he won
mil.
5 races. You won that thrilling Caulfield Guineas. What was the adrenaline like, and can you compare it to playing footy?
It was pretty nervy, sort of. I think with footy, because you're playing and you have control of your own fate, sort of thing. It's a lot different. Whereas going to watch your own horse, and let alone just a random horse you might punt on, is nerve-wracking enough for me. And so throughout the day, I don't think we had much of a chance. I can't remember who beat us in the races before, but I think we were sitting at maybe $14 for the day. And
don't tell me you backed it as well.
I did back. You have to, don't you? and so it ended up coming into $8 or something. So at the start of the day, I was pretty relaxed, and as I said, it was the first horse of own, so I wasn't expecting it to win. I don't think many of us were, but then sort of once the punters started backing, and it was like all of a sudden it was like, oh, maybe we actually are a chance. And Alligator Blood was in that race. He was a pretty good horse. looked like he was going to win with about 400 metres to go. And then sort of, just watching it. And I think I sort of stopped watching around the bend. I was like, oh, geez, this is, it was good. It was great fun to be here. And then all of a sudden, it was like, turn around.
Like a rocket.
And then he came from the clouds, as they say.
So take us through those feelings, because you still didn't know, like, you'd won, and you're thinking, this is amazing. I've had my little bet on it, and we've won, prize money. This is incredible. But you probably didn't have in the back of your head, oh, now we're going to sell the horse for 15 million plus as well. Whereas I'm sure Lockie and the others that had been a part of Merchant Navy, they're like, oh, cha-ching, 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 you beauty. It's happened again, which is very rare.
Yeah, well, you get into the horse owning business for fun, as we all know. But that obviously wasn't at the forefront of my mind. They sort of floated the idea, saying, if we do win, that's some serious coin to be made. But yeah, at that moment, I was, we weren't sure at one, so we were sort of jumping up and down. And then to watch the replay and the photo finish was, it was so ecstatic. And the money didn't really sort of come into fact until, after I finished, the 5-day bender after the win.
5 days is a pretty good way to celebrate it. I'd love to know how many times you watched that replay. Did you do anything wise with the money? Tell me you bought something or invested. Did you do something smart?
Oh, I probably I've invested about into another 10 horses since then. So that money is leaking out pretty quickly. But no, straight to the mortgage.
Yeah, good. Well, that's
Well
good.
done.
Put it to the mortgage. That counts.
Yep.
Who's the best horse you've had? Schweno Fighter?
Yeah, which won a Turnbull Stakes and then went on to be favourite in the Caulfield Cup. And
Slaughtered too.
Yeah, it's questionable. But it's the thrill, like doing it with your mates. And as you say, you've got no control. So the trainer, the jockey, the horse can't talk to you. You don't know. Your fingers crossed. The horse goes well. You just hope. But winning with your friends, and that's what I say, you can't get any bigger buzz. Like you really can't. When your horse wins with your mates, you're all in it together. Yes, you play footy and have big wins, great, but it's pretty hard to compare when, you got people from all walks of life doing something and having a real high. It's pretty amazing sport to be a part of, and that's why we all love it.
Yeah, and sort of, I did miss out on the 2016 premiership, but that would have been as close to as a feeling as I would have gotten, I reckon. And like you say, it's just the highest of highs, and I did joke about the 5-day bender, but I didn't last till 12 a.m. that night because I was on such a high, and then obviously what goes up must come down, and I just crashed because it was just the best feeling in the world, honestly, and it's hard to put into words, and I know it might sound silly, you're just having a horse winning, but one of the best days of my life.
It wasn't just a race,
yeah.
And it's a race that everyone wants to try and win, and they want to sell their horses to stud, which is the dream, isn't it, for all those horse lovers out there, Quinny?
It is. It's buying the Tats Lotto ticket. Lockie Hunter won it twice, but just the fact that you won in a photo finish like that just was unbelievable.
And knowing you've been in about 80 plus horses, Quinny, and still can't win a maiden at Wambatuk, I think we need to readdress where you're going with life.
There's no doubt about that. Now, being a footballer, you've obviously come across a lot of famous people. I mean, you've got Shane Crawford, you're right, prime example. But Bulldogs, are they a footy club that seem to mingle with a lot of the celebrities? Have you come across some of the famous types we often see, the Hollywood A-listers that sometimes get to the dog games?
I do have a decent story about this, and it was round 1 of 2019. We were playing against the Sydney Swans, and it's pretty well known that Chris Hemsworth is a Bulldog supporter. He was at the Grand Final in 2016. And so there was a couple of us rehab boys who were watching the game, and so the game sort of was coming to an end. We knew it would won, and a few of the other boys just sprinted down to make sure they were there for the song. And I remember Dale Morris was on crutches, so being the good bloke that I am, just decided to wait for him. And, Karma decided to repay. And we were going to the lifts to get down. The security guard holds us up and he's like, hang on a second, boys, who are you guys? And, we're like, oh, we're players. Like, it's an AFL game. We're players. We we we're the biggest stars here. And so all of a sudden, Gil McLaughlin walks behind us, and the security guard's like, "These guys with you?" And he's like, "Oh, yeah, they're okay." So we go into the sort of.
Thanks, Gil.
Thanks, Gil. Yeah,
the players
probably,
who put on the show.
Yeah, pretty famous enough.
At least he said yes.
And so at the game was Chris Hemsworth and Matt Damon. And so their whole sort of entourage comes into the lift with us. And sort of they see us and they notice we're players, and they start chatting to us, like saying how, Matt Damon sort of in particular talking about how crazy the game is, how crazy we are to play it. And Chris Hemsworth is sort of just saying good day and stuff. And so that was, pretty crazy sort of thing to be in a lift with those two people, and Chris Hemsworth, being the megastar he is, but I'm sort of big Matt Damon fan, love Good Will Hunting, and so I was sort of more starstruck by him, and too nervous to ask for a photo, shut myself a little bit, and couldn't get the words coming out of my mouth, and then. Sort of the lift went down, and then off they went into this big limo with their big party, and then off we went to the change rooms. And
you should have just jumped in with them. You should have just jumped in.
I thought I pushed my luck a bit too much, but it all came about for waiting for Del Morris, so there you go.
That is absolutely superb. Rounder's my favourite Damon movie for those playing at home. Now we're going to finish with some bangs. Favourite ever win?
I have to be my first win. It was against Richmond in 2014. So it took me a couple of years to get me first win, but yeah, that was probably the biggest one. I kicked a couple of goals. I played okay, and I had mum and dad there, so that's probably the most memorable one for me.
Best sledge you've ever heard?
Best sledge. I think I was pretty well known to not have a good kick. As I said, I didn't play footy for that long before I started playing, and it's sort of been, I don't know, we were probably halfway through the season, and right like before I was having a set shot, Sean Higgins, who moved to North Melbourne, just sort of came up to me before I was having a set shot. He's like, "Mate, have you kicked a drop punt all year?" And so before he said that, right before a drop punt, that actually put me off so much, and obviously sprayed it. So that was a pretty handy one.
Best spray from a coach you've heard?
Best spray, probably in the off season. It was from Brendan McCartney. After my second year, he just said, you have the big review and all the coaches and people sitting there, and he just sort of said, half of us don't even want you here, and you're lucky, the better half of us do. So just remember, you're so lucky to be here, and that was. Sort of,
that's going to give you confidence.
And
that's going to make you want to be here. Well, that's a fair whack.
Well, no wonder he fell out with the players. What was the upside in that? Was he trying to motivate you? Was he trying to say he was one of the few that did want you there?
I still
There's no
don't
upside
know.
in that.
And so I honestly, I was bawling my eyes out as I left that meeting. And the development coach had to come and say, "Oh, he's only saying that to motivate you a bit." I'm just like, I don't want to play for. I don't want to play footy anymore.
Well, that's the thing. So you got to pick
so that
your
was
target.
Yeah, that was by far the worst one. I think.
Normally they're quite humorous. That's genuinely nasty.
Well, and do you want to be at a football club where half these people in here don't want you?
Yeah, that was
which obviously wasn't the case. But it's like in the back of your mind, you're probably thinking, yeah, mate, which ones don't want me here? Who's spoken up about me?
Yeah,
so all of a sudden, you start questioning yourself.
That was my exact thinking, and you would know sort of in those reviews, like there were people who just had no right to be sitting in there. Like, it's like, I don't even know who you are. You can't be telling me how my season went. You don't know how to kick a footy. So that was by far the worst, and probably Bevo when. Yeah. I got caught sort of touring the Collingwood facilities. He called me up and gave me a big old spray.
Oh, yeah. Yes, okay, let's go through that.
That one nearly went through to the keeper. What happened there?
What happened there? Your mum loves the Bulldogs. She doesn't watch AFL, but all of a sudden she's on the bandwagon, and you've decided to go on tour Collingwood. Why?
I was led astray. I'm going to say that first and foremost. So
by your management?
By management, yeah. So he sort of said, "Oh, they're pretty." This was halfway through the season, and Collingwood are pretty keen. It'd be good
So
to hear.
hang
what
on,
they say.
you went and did a tour halfway through the year. Oh my
Yes,
goodness.
and he said, "Oh, it's mate.
Are you crazy?"
He goes, mate, it's at night time," and I'm sort of like, "Oh yeah, whatever." The Bulldogs are low balling, and yeah, this could get the ball rolling a bit.
This is under Luke Beveridge as well.
Yeah, under Luke Beveridge,
good
and
luck
so
with that.
we go through the back entrance at Westpac Centre, and so I was sitting in a room with Neil Baum, Nathan Buckley, and I can't remember who the head of the list manager was at that time. And so, had a big meeting with them. And then they're like, why don't we show you the facilities and stuff? And so walking through the weights room and the pool and, we didn't have one at the Bulldogs, so it was pretty cool. And
But you can't swim.
yeah,
Well, you don't want to go near that pool.
it was cool to look at. I mean, and so there was.
And Locker 46 was in a good spot.
I think I didn't see Lockers. I think Mason Cox is 46 now anyway. So, and so there were players doing weights. I think there were VFL players all bit. And I've sort of walked and I'm like, this. I was like, geez, that's a bit. I don't know what's about that. And no shit. The next day, it's just out in the papers. I'm like, I'm not even a good player. Why is this making the back page? This is not newsworthy, but it was pretty. Players always do it, but I just got caught. And Bevo called me up, and he's like,
So he wasn't face to face. He got on the phone
called
to
me
you.
because
So what was your reaction when you saw your phone and it's Luke Beveridge ringing?
So I got a heads up, luckily, for my manager.
Decline.
They're going to go for this story. Bevo's going to call you. And I'm like, this is end of the world sort of stuff for me. And he's called up. He's like, mate, I've just heard this. He's like, this isn't true. It can't be true because who would be that stupid to do it? And I'm like, oh, mate. I was like, yeah, no, I did. I did do it. And he's like, what the hell are you doing? How can I trust you to play with us if you're doing this? How can any of the players trust you? He's just gone, bang and just gone. And I'm just like, yep. I'm an idiot. Please forgive me, mate. And it ended up, it wasn't resolved at all. And then, luckily, Jason McCartney, our list manager at the time, was able to say this happens in the modern day of footy. As I said, unfortunately, I got caught and probably should have done it differently, if not done it at all. So he calmed down a bit, and he did play me that next week. And so the boys made a big joke of it. They walked. So it's pretty awkward walking to the change rooms. And then we had the team meeting. They put a big picture of me in a Collingwood Guernsey, and I had big sleeve tattoos and about 4 teeth missing. So, but I'm so lucky to have stayed at the Bulldogs because I got to stay there for 10 years and get life membership, and I'm pretty happy I stayed there.
So was Bevo really angry or a bit of sarcastic humour to begin with and sort of just let you dob yourself in? What was he like? Was he similar to what we saw at the press conference the other day or much more measured?
Similar to the press conference. Feel for Tom Morris.
I reckon he would have barreled you at management as well.
No, he did. Thank God it was over the phone, or I would have ended in tears, just like my end of season review spray, I think.
But I think he would have understood you were generally sorry. You were genuine in being sorry for putting yourself in that position. So that's obviously why he played you, and there's plenty of love there. But that would have been great to be a fly on the wall to watch the conversation.
I do laugh about it now, but
that would be a great reality show if we were able to just track that. I know we've tracked some footballers and coaches over the last few years. Now that would be something that would be unforgettable. Watching that happen.
It was the first sort of experience I had of Bevo showing that side of him. So. Never tour it again or entertain that idea.
Did you say, hey, mate, they got a pool? How good is that?
Funniest football moment? Could be on a footy trip, could be something in the change rooms.
That was pretty funny, that story.
Yeah.
Trying to work through
Doesn't have to be about him, though.
Did you go on any footy trips? Probably early on you did because you're allowed to, but then they stopped them.
Yeah, early on. They kept going to America, so you could only go if you're 21. But probably one I haven't told, but it's pretty funny looking back on it now. We, as you do, you have your buys throughout the year, so it's a good chance to sort of catch up with the boys and have a few drinks. And I think the State of Origin, I can't remember what year it was. The State of Origin was that night, and a few of us had planned to go on a golf trip. And so I got a bit carried away having a few too many drinks, as people in their 20s do. And then, all of a sudden my flight's at 6. It's like maybe I should just, have a few more drinks and just go all the way through. And,
why do you book it at 6 o'clock anyway?
That was
that's
the
just
first mistake.
Just an error.
And then, got onto called the missus and I was like, oh, can you take me to the airport this time? I'm just gonna stay up. Like, there's no point in going to sleep now. What's the point in getting 2 hours sleep? And then go to the large luggage area and carrying my my golf bag and still like absolutely stink of alcohol. And then sort of lo and behold, I ran into Bevo's wife who's there and she's like, Jesus, you need to go to bed. And I'm like, yeah.
Oh, jeez.
And then Bevo's right there.
Oh, no. The coach is there.
Dropping off his surfboard and we so happened to be on the same flight.
Oh.
Did not say a single word to me because he sort of obviously knew the state I was in. So that was probably, looking back, it's funny now, but I was shitting me. He had a word to me because we were playing sort of midweek the next week, so probably broke the drinking rules that we had in place. But I can say it now because I don't play anymore.
And the sleeping rules. You didn't go to sleep.
Yeah,
and
well,
then you rock up, and then the coach is on your bloody flight.
They assume we have common sense as players, but not all of us do.
I won't ask how you hit him on the golf course.
Yeah, probably. I'll raise the bat over 100 in the golf course, I think.
That's not a good thing.
Final question. We've loved having a chat to you today, so thank you so much for giving up your time. But final question, what's next for Lin Jong?
So I had plans to do teaching and was lucky enough to do a bit of work at a school after footy and sort of figured it wasn't quite for me. Still figuring out what I enjoy, and I've always been really passionate about mental health, having gone through my own sort of mental illness. So it's something, I advocate, and now to get a job at Beyond Blue, which is where I work now, and sort of really feel like I'm making a difference on a whole new level, is something that I'm really appreciative of, and something footy can change and help people's lives and influence them, but I feel like this is on a different scale. So I'm at Beyond Blue now, and I'm working in mental health, and for the time being, that's what I see myself doing.
No, it's such important work, and especially someone who's had their own battles to actually share those experiences. It's amazing what the flow-on effect and how it can actually help so many people from all walks of life. James Hird, I spent some time with James Hird, and he told me his story. And I'm like, and at the time he was very guarded with everything he was doing. And I'm like, no, you need to tell everyone that, and he's like, I'm not ready to. But then he got to a stage where he started talking about it because it was a way of coming out the other end. And not only that, the amount of letters, the amount of support that he gets on the back of telling his story and helping so many through really tough times, it's so important. So the work you're doing is awesome. So keep up the good work. Keep telling your story. And, mate, it's fantastic that you played, over 60 games from where you've come from. And then on top of it all, you own a bloody champion racehorse and you still have to start. It doesn't get any better than that, so well done.
I think that's the best thing about me.
Lin, you're an absolute legend on and off the field. Thanks so much for having a chat.
Thanks, fellas. Thanks for having me.
And punters, you've been listening to Inside 50.